If you're gearing up for the IELTS academic reading module, specifically the computer-based version for 2025, well, you're definitely in the right place.
Yeah, we've really gone through the key info to give you a solid grasp of this part of the exam.
And today, it's not just about, what the test is. We want to give you a smarter way to approach it, boost that score, and hopefully make you feel way more confident on the actual day.
Exactly. And the computer format, it's convenient, plus you get those results faster.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. 3 to 5 days instead of, nearly 2 weeks for the paper test.
Right. So mastering this format is definitely a good move.
So what are we covering today?
Okay, we'll dive into the format specifics, all the different question types you might see, effective time management, which is key for the computer test, and importantly, those common slip-ups to watch out for.
Think of it as your strategy guide.
Pretty much. Your fast track to feeling ready.
Okay, let's get straight into it then. The computer-based format. What are the absolute need-to-know numbers for Reading?
Okay, the basics. You get exactly 60 minutes, 1 hour.
60 minutes on the clock. And questions.
40 questions in total.
40 questions in 60 minutes. And that's across how many reading passages?
Three separate passages.
Okay, 3 passages, 40 questions, 60 minutes. Easy to remember. Now, being on a computer, that changes the experience, right? What tools do you have?
It does. You get some helpful on-screen tools.
Uh-huh.
There's a timer, always visible, which is good.
You can be honest.
Definitely. And you could highlight text directly on screen, and there's a function to make notes, too.
Ah, okay. Like digital highlighting and sticky notes.
Sort of, yeah. Plus a navigation bar to jump between questions or passages easily. It's quite different from physically flipping pages and scribbling with a pencil.
Yeah, no more frantic page-turning sounds.
Yeah.
Maybe less stressful. And we mentioned the faster results. How does it look on screen? The layout.
Typically, you see one passage and its questions together on the screen,
Side by side or...
often side by side or maybe questions below. There's usually navigation on the side, so you can easily click to another question or passage. You're not looking at a whole booklet at once.
Right, more focused view. And the reading passages themselves, what kind of texts are we talking about?
They're academic texts,
Yeah.
so expect longer pieces, maybe from journals, books, sometimes reputable magazines or newspapers.
And the topics.
Pretty broad, actually. Science, education, history, environment. Could be sociology, art, a real mix. Oh, in one passage might have a visual, like a diagram or a graph or a table.
Good to know about the visuals. Need to be ready for that. Is there a pattern? Like, do they get harder?
Yes, generally they do. Passage 1 is usually the most straightforward. Passage 2 gets a bit tougher.
Yeah.
And passage 3 is typically the most complex.
Okay, so a gradual increase in difficulty. That's important for planning time.
Exactly. You need to factor that in.
All right, format covered. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. The question types. Sounds like there's quite a range.
There really is. You could get multiple choice, sometimes choose one answer, sometimes 2, maybe even 3.
Okay, multiple choice. Standard enough. What else?
Then you have true, false, not given.
Yeah.
And also yes, no, not given. They sound similar but test slightly different things.
Ah, yes. These are famous for tripping people up. What's the core difference again?
It really is tricky. For true, false, not given, it's about factual information. False means the passage directly contradicts the statement.
Yeah.
Not given means the info just isn't there.
Okay. And yes, not given.
That one's about the writer's views or claims. So no means the writer specifically disagrees with the statement. Not given means they just don't express an opinion on that point.
Crucial difference. And the big rule.
Stick only to the text. No outside knowledge, no assumptions. Just what's written there.
Super important reminder. Okay, what other matching tasks are there?
Right, lots of matching. Matching headings to paragraphs. Finding the best title for each paragraph from a list.
Okay, summaries, basically.
Yeah. Then matching information to paragraphs. Finding specific details within paragraphs.
So finding names, dates, reasons.
Exactly. Also, matching features linking things like, say, researchers to their findings or theories to their proponents.
Right.
And matching sentence endings, you get the first half of a sentence and have to pick the correct ending from a list.
Wow, okay. That covers a lot of skills. What about filling in blanks?
Yep, several types there too. Sentence completion, filling gaps in sentences from the passage.
Using the exact words.
Usually, yes, and you need to watch the word limit. Then summary completion, filling gaps in a summary. Sometimes you get a box of words to choose from, sometimes not.
Okay. With or without a word bank.
Correct. Also, note completion, table completion, flowchart completion, filling gaps in structured information.
Like organizing the facts.
Precisely. And diagram label completion, labeling parts of a picture using words from the text. And finally, short answer questions, writing brief answers to specific questions based on the text.
And for all those completion types, the word limit is key, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. Pay very close attention. No more than 2 words and Suk and a number, you must stick to it. Go over, even if the info is right and the answer is marked wrong.
Even hyphenated words.
Generally count as 1 word, but always check the specific IELTS rules if you're unsure. Better safe than sorry.
Okay, so a huge variety of questions, which makes time management, well, absolutely essential, especially on the computer where there's no extra time to transfer answers like on paper.
Spot on. Time is probably the biggest challenge for many.
So how should you break down that 60 minutes? Any suggested strategy?
A good rule of thumb, bearing in mind the increasing difficulty, is maybe 15 minutes for passage 1,
Okay, the easier one.
then about 20 minutes for passage 2,
Getting tougher.
and leave a solid 25 minutes for passage 3, the hardest one.
15, 20, 25, like a countdown timer itself.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
It helps you pace yourself and not get bogged down early on.
makes sense. Now, within that time, any specific tactics for different question types? How do you approach the reading itself?
Well, for most questions, you'll probably use a mix of scanning, looking quickly for specific words or numbers.
Keyword spotting.
Exactly. And skimming reading quickly to get the general idea of a paragraph or section.
So not always reading every single word carefully.
Not initially, no.
Hmm.
For things like matching headings, you'd skim first to get the main idea. For others, you scan for keywords from the question, then read that specific part intensively. Using the highlight tool while you scan or skim can really help mark things you need to come back to.
Right, use those digital tools. What about gap fill questions? Sentence completion, summary completion.
For those, read the title if there is one, then read the questions or the summary first. Underline keywords in the gaps or sentences, then scan the passage for those keywords or synonyms.
Synonyms are important there.
Very important, especially if there's a word bank. Once you find the right area, read carefully to get the exact answer, and always check the word limit and spelling.
Okay. And true, false not given or yes not given, how to be efficient there.
Again, keywords are your friend. Highlight them in this statement. Scan the passage. When you find the relevant part, read it very carefully. Does it match? Does it contradict? Or is it just not mentioned?
And remember the difference between false no and not given.
Crucial. False no needs a direct contradiction. Not given is simply an absence of information. And remember, these questions usually follow the order of the text, which helps.
That's useful. Pay attention to verbs, conjunctions maybe?
Definitely. They often signal the writer's opinion or the factual relationship.
Okay, matching headings. These can feel daunting. Any tips?
Yeah, they can eat up time. First, read the passage title. Then read all the headings in the list. Underline keywords in the headings.
Get the gist of each heading.
Right. Then tackle the passage. Maybe start with shorter paragraphs. Sometimes they're easier. Read the first sentence carefully. The topic sentence often has the main idea. Skim the rest to confirm.
And remember, there are extra headings.
Yes, always distractors. Don't force a fit. If you're stuck, mark it and move on. Don't spend ages on one paragraph.
Good advice. What about matching information? Locating specific details.
That can also be time-consuming because the answers aren't in order. Highlight keywords in the statements you need to find. Maybe start with ones that look easier, like names or numbers.
Things that stand out.
Exactly. Scan for those. Read around them to confirm the match. Be aware you might use a paragraph more than once, or maybe not at all. Again, if one is proving difficult, leave it and come back.
Don't get stuck. And multiple choice.
For MCQs, read the question stem first, not the options.
Really, don't look at A, B, C, D.
Not right away. Understand the question, highlight keywords, then scan the text to find where it's discussed. Read that part carefully, then look at all the options.
Okay, so locate the answer in the text before looking at the choices.
It helps avoid being misled by distractors. Eliminate the obviously wrong ones. If you're stuck between two, trust your understanding of the text. These usually follow the text order too.
And this applies to other choice-based questions too, like sentence endings.
Yeah, the same principle. Understand the first part, locate the relevant text, then evaluate the ending options. It works for choosing multiple answers as well.
This is really practical stuff. Knowing these strategies feels like half the battle. Now let's talk about avoiding mistakes, especially ones linked to the computer format. What trips people up?
Obvious one first. Misclicks and typos. Easy to do when you're rushing. Clicking the wrong radio button, typing errors in completion tasks.
Especially in listening or writing, I guess?
Yes, but even in reading for completion types. Double checking before moving on is key. And, as we've said, poor time management. Getting stuck on one passage or question type.
The clock ticking down adds pressure.
It really does. Another thing is not actually using the tools properly.
The highlight and notes function.
Exactly. People know they're there but don't practice with them, so on the day, they either forget or use them inefficiently. They can genuinely help you track information if you get used to them.
Okay, so practice using the tools is important. What else?
Ignoring word limits, particularly in writing, but also relevant for some reading questions. And not leaving any time to review answers at the end of a section. Just submitting and hoping for the best.
That final check can catch simple mistakes.
Absolutely. Even just a quick scan for missed questions or obvious typos.
Any other computer-specific issues?
Well, for listening, some find the listening and typing coordination tricky. Need practice there. But the biggest overarching mistake,
Go on.
not preparing specifically for the computer format. Reading on screen feels different. Navigating feels different. You need to simulate the real thing.
So how do we actively avoid these pitfalls? What's the action plan?
It all comes down to practice, but smart practice. First, consciously double-check answers before confirming or moving on.
Slow down for a second.
Exactly. Use official IELTS on computer practice tests. That's crucial. Get familiar with the interface, the look, the feel.
Build that muscle memory for navigation.
Right. Work on your typing speed and accuracy if needed. Practice your time management strategy, 15, 20, 25 minutes under timed conditions.
Simulate the pressure.
Yes. And actively use the highlight and note tools during practice so it becomes second nature.
Yeah.
For writing practice, always check word counts. Plan before typing.
And build in that review time.
Always. Even if it's just 2 minutes at the end of reading, practice reviewing. Train yourself to listen and type for the listening section. Maybe use abbreviations initially if it helps.
And the main thing.
Do full-length, timed, computer-based mock tests. Reading for an hour on screen, managing the interface you need to experience that before the real test.
It really sounds like practice, especially the right kind of practice, is everything. What's the real power of using those official computer mock tests?
Oh, it's huge. First, familiarity. Knowing the interface reduces anxiety massively. You're not figuring things out on test day.
Confidence booster.
Big time. Second, it lets you really hone your time management and strategies in that specific environment. What works on paper might need tweaking for the screen.
Good point.
Third, it highlights your weaknesses. Maybe you struggle with a certain question type on the computer or your pacing is off. Mock tests reveal that.
So you know where to focus.
Exactly. It gives you that hands-on experience, improves your speed, your accuracy with clicking and typing. It just builds overall confidence. You walk in knowing what to expect.
Okay, this has been incredibly useful. A real deep dive into the computer-based IELTS academic reading for 2025. Let's just quickly pull together the absolute key takeaways.
Sure. So remember, 60 minutes, 40 questions, 3 academic passages that usually get harder.
Know the timings.
Know all the question types, what they're asking, and the skills they test. Have specific strategies for each.
Plan your attack.
Master time management for the computer. That 15, 20, 25 split is a good starting point. Scan, skim, read intensively as needed.
Be efficient.
Use the on-screen tools. Highlight notes they're there to help. Practice with them.
Don't ignore the tools.
And actively avoid those common mistakes. Typos, misclicks, running out of time, ignoring word limits, skipping the review.
Be careful and check. And the final, most crucial point.
Preparation, preparation, preparation. Specifically using official computer-based practice tests. That familiarity and practice under timed conditions is non-negotiable for success.
Right. Getting comfortable with the format is key.
It truly is.
So as you get ready for your IELTS test, really internalize this stuff. Understanding these details about the computer-based rating module, practicing the strategies, it genuinely can make a significant difference to your score.
Absolutely. It puts you in control.
So take charge of your prep, use those official resources, practice consistently and strategically. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.